Hi, everyone. An instant telltale of a good artist is their clean, crisp lines. They can be loose or precise, but in either case, you can immediately tell when they're drawn cleanly and confidently. When I first started to draw, my lines were clumsy, hesitant, and feathery. They looked awful. They also didn't start and finish accurately at the right places. Whilst I'm on the subject of straight lines, I'd like to also cover hatching. What is hatching, I hear you ask? Hatching is a technique used to create tonal or shading effects by drawing lots of closely spaced lines. When the lines are placed at an angle to one another, this is called cross hatching. You can see the different textures we can achieve with hatching in different directions. Quite often, we will build our darker values by multiple layers of hatching with the lines going in various directions. You can see from this sash window drawing the amount of depth we have managed to achieve by using hatching and cross hatching and a couple of layers as well. The reason I'm referring to hatching and cross hatching in this video is because practicing these techniques is fantastic for improving your straight lines. The key point in this exercise is to focus on the quality of the straight lines. You can see they are very close together, but they do not touch. They're as parallel as I can get them, actually. Also, they have a very precise start and finish. I cannot emphasize the importance of these 2 points. If they wobble and touch, or don't start and finish cleanly, you're not going to achieve the crispness you need. In this unit, I'll go through some exercises that will help you improve your technique. Please remember, technique is important, but practice is vital. I recommend that you do about 5 to 10 minutes of this next exercise as a warm up before you start your drawings. Straight lines are all about muscle memory. The more you practice, the better you will get. As you can see, I've used three types of cross hatching: vertical and horizontal, diagonal, and a combination of the two, i.e., in two layers, which gives us much deeper values. Of course, there are many other types of hatching that we'll cover in later courses, but for now, that's what we will work with. And I think we should get started, right? So when I first decided to do this unit, uh, I automatically went straight to the 5 millimeter squared paper. This is just any paper. It's the maker is not really important. Just find something in your local store. Um, I recorded the video and sent it to a number of my students. And you'll be pleased to hear you're not alone with the phobia of straight lines. Many of them struggle with straight lines, and they struggled with the 5 millimeter paper. So I thought it's best I do this next exercise using 10 millimeter paper, 10 millimeter square paper rather than the 5. So let's get started. I'm going to start by drawing a grid, which is 10 squares tall and 5 squares wide. I'm going to use a micron 003, which is the thinnest micron I can find. Micron are great because the tip is great, they feel good, great pen, and they are waterproof, which means that you can use them on subsequent drawings for when you're drawing and you need to add watercolor. It's not relevant to here because this paper is not good for watercolor, but it's my go-to pen and that's what I use. So I'm going to draw 5 wide, and I'm starting from here because I know I'm going to end up doing another 5 here and then 10 deep. So draw straight lines very gently, very carefully. Try to take your time, go slowly. There is no rush. Uh, think of it as therapy. It's make sure that you enjoy the process. Make sure that you stop uh, at certain intervals and realign yourself. Um, these little stops are very useful to make sure that you don't veer off target, and B, they can actually add some texture to your drawing sometimes. So don't be afraid to stop your drawing. I just wouldn't stop them every time in exactly the same place. So here you go. I nearly went off there, so it's fine. Uh, and I'm drawing these without warm up. I always advise you to warm up. Warming up is a very useful exercise before you start drawing. So now we're doing all the verticals, and that is what is called hatching. And of course, because the squares are so wide, it really doesn't look like hatching, and it isn't really hatching. But that is the first step of hatching. Now we're going to cross hatch, and I'm going to go horizontally. Because it's only 5 squares, I feel that I can do them without having a break in the middle. Make sure that you don't press very hard. Hold the pen quite high up. Don't press very hard. Just keep a very light touch on the paper. The harder you press, the clumsier the lines look. And if they're nice and soft, they look quite refined and elegant. How is that for an expression? Refined and elegant straight lines. Now, one thing that's really important is make sure that all your lines they start and finish at exactly the right corners. So don't start halfway or midway. Make sure that you literally start and finish in exactly the right place. Next, we're going to do five. We're going to do a similar rectangle, which is 5 squares wide and 10 tall. But we're going to do them diagonally. So because we're not always sure where they're going to end, I'm going to mark up my finish points here, and you'll see why, to make sure that I don't go outside my designated area. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from corner to corner this time. And of course, it's harder because I haven't got, I'm not actually tracing over a straight line. In between the corners, I am using my best judgment. When you're drawing, uh, when you're not actually tracing on top of a line, always look at your target. So I'm focusing on where my pen is leading to rather than where it is at the moment. Again, I would stop my lines. The key is not to have little breaks in there. It's fine. Having breaks in there is fine. But the key is starting exactly where you should start and finish where you should finish. That's more important than having these little breaks. And sometimes you might break at the corner, which is okay. By the way, if you wanted to really, if you're really struggling with this, with the diagonals, I don't mind as a first trial, second or third trial, uh, that you mark these up with a ruler and then you go over them with pen. The next step is an interesting one because I would like you, please, to have a think about self assessment. So have a look at your work and think if somebody presented this to me and it's not my work, how accurate or good or neat is it? Would I give that person more than 4 out of 5? If you look at it and look at your work objectively and you give it 4 or plus, then move to the next stage. If it's less than 4 out of 5, please repeat the exercise again. We're going to use this self assessment method quite often going forward. And hopefully that'll help you decide when to practice more and when you're good to go to the next stage. I feel now I've given myself 4 out of 5. So I'm going to go to the next stage and I'm going to cut this top box here by half. And then the next one by half. And then do every box, I'm going to cut it by half. And of course, that's way harder when you don't have the guidelines uh, to trace over. Remember, the exercise is to create hatching, which gives us depth. And of course, with depth, we need to have lots and lots and lots of parallel lines that are close together. So this is just the beginning. And this is fantastic discipline to running nice and slow straight lines, especially if you're hatching to be super neat. And now that we've cut each square by half, we're going to do that vertically. Now we're going to do that horizontally. And the temptation is to hold the pen lower and press harder, but trust me, you don't need to. And if you get tired, stop, take a break, have a cup of tea, come back again. Don't just bulldoze it through and go quicker and lose concentration. I like to think that my speed is not changing as I'm progressing. Uh, so now we've dissected all our squares in half here. We're going to do exactly the same here. And the easiest way to do this is to take that center line, that point from the middle, and run a parallel to these two lines right there. Of course, in here we have to make a judgment call where we start because we don't have that nice big starting point there. Actually, if you think about it, if you go from one center to center, yeah, center there to center here, then that gives you the same result. So if you go from the middle of every square to the middle of every square, and that might be harder or easier for you, For me, it's easier to follow straight lines. You could literally you can dot your middles, your center point, and follow the dots if you feel that that helps you. The reason why this is so important is because eventually, when you do your hatching, if your lines get glued together or not straight enough, you're going to find your hatching doesn't look very refined. Okay, and then you do exactly the same that way. And here you can see we have a starting point, so it's easier slightly. Actually, you have a finishing point as well. Sorry, you slightly off target here, not as critical. Try and keep within. But without using a ruler, it's going to be impossible to get these squares to be millimetrically accurate. But I think you can see where I'm heading with this. The neatness, that's really important. Right. Self-assessment time. What do we think? 4 out of 5? Yeah, I'd give it 4. Maybe 4.1. Right. If you're happy with this and you pass, then do exactly the same thing again by dissecting each square again vertically and go to the uh, next size down. As I said, if you weren't happy with the last exercise, please repeat it until you score yourself high enough and you can actually take yourself to the next level. Uh, just to let you know, because I'm talking and because I'm obviously losing concentration slightly, one of my lines was not perfect there, which is not great because I've just told you to slow down and concentrate. Sometimes use that as an excuse that talking means I'm allowed to lose concentration. diagonally next, and that's obviously slightly trickier. But because I've got two guidelines either side, uh, I don't think it's that bad. By the way, just in case I didn't mention earlier, your lines do not need to be as straight as a ruler line. Actually, sometimes if you do hatching with a ruler, they don't look as good. As long as they're neat and tidy, that's what you want. Okay? And one other thing, uh, I promise you, if you do this and you literally practice this before you start the drawing every time, uh, your straight lines will improve dramatically in a very, very short period of time. And if I were you, I'd keep the book and look at your progress. You'll be surprised. It's like muscle memory. And even now, because I've done a few lines, I'm feeling a little bit more confident or relaxed, making the rest of the lines easier. What we've done here is we've taken, but the textures look very good. Oh, sorry, 4.1. I still, maybe 4, not 4.1. But the textures and the concept here is the same. I mean, when you look at it in context and you look at the hatching, you would be happy that this is where you were heading. We're not there yet, but that's where we're heading. Uh, so we've cut effectively each square into 4 little squares here, and the same here again. Yeah. Um, Now, if you are happy with this stage, let's go to the next stage. If you're not, please, please, please do it again until you're happy with the 10 millimeter paper. Then don't go to the 5 millimeter paper. Now, I like the 5 millimeter paper because it's very useful practice. They're both very useful practice. If you want to practice in terms of getting proportions right, they're really useful pads to have. So I'm not wasting your money by saying please get this paper. So next we're going to do a 10 square, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5. So now we're going to do a 5 squared box in this paper. So I'm repeating exactly the same exercise that we did with the larger boxes, the larger squares. Exactly the same exercise. So I'll go a little bit faster, speed up the camera as well. I think you're going to find that this exercise now is going to resemble hatching a lot more than the previous pad, because we're going to go much tighter, and you're going to see the textures as well. Okay, again, self-assessment, 4 out of 5. Let's go. Sometimes it's easier to turn the paper when you're doing different directions. Okay, what do we think? 4 out of 5. Shall we go to the next stage? So we are now going to cut our squares in half again. I don't know about you, but I'm finding that I have less room on the diagonals than I did on the verticals and horizontals. So, a quick recap. Number one, make sure that your lines are clean and crisp. Number two, they start and finish exactly where you want them. Number three, if the lines are too long, then you can add tiny little breaks, which can actually add texture. Number four, use this exercise in part or in full as your warm up until your straight lines are amazing. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. And please don't hesitate to give me your feedback, ask me questions on Instagram, and I will try and help as much as I can. Thank you very much and look forward to seeing you soon.